Welcome to Global World Watch. Please subscribe and press the bell icon for more updates. Tuesday, November 25, 2025, began like any other day in Washington, D.C., the city waking to the hum of traffic and the glow of sunrise. People hurried to work, unaware that by afternoon, the city's pulse would change forever. Suddenly, a news alert flashed across every screen. Special Counsel announces indictment and arrest of former President Donald J. Trump. In an instant, the city froze. Conversations stopped, meetings were interrupted, and disbelief swept through the Capitol. Phones rang off the hook, aides rushed through corridors, and a congressional hearing was suspended. The Capitol, usually a hive of controlled chaos, was gripped by uncertainty. Trump arrested. A phrase that had hovered in speculation for years was now reality. Headlines scrolled across screens, echoing the disbelief felt everywhere. For a few minutes the city was silent, stunned, united, in shock. Tourists stared at their phones, the weight of history settling over the Capitol. As night fell, Washington was illuminated by the world's attention. The nation knew nothing would ever be the same. The world was watching as history unfolded. The silence outside the courthouse was electric, heavy with anticipation. Then, in a single moment, it shattered. An eruption of emotion and noise swept through the crowd. Two Americas collided on the courthouse steps, each side bracing for a verdict that would define their reality. On one side, cheers erupted. Supporters waved "Justice is served" signs, faces alight with relief. For them, this was proof that no one is above the law. But just across the street, Trump supporters gathered, their faces etched with anger and disbelief. Chants of "Free Trump" rang out, flags waved defiantly. For them, this was not justice but a political attack. The deep divide outside was mirrored in Congress, where lawmakers scrambled to respond. Democrats called for calm and respect for the legal process, feeling vindicated that the system had worked. Among Republicans, the response was fractured. Some condemned the arrest, others remained silent, wary of the fallout. Across the spectrum, America's leaders reflected the same deep divisions as the people they represented, some hopeful, others fearful, all aware the country had crossed a new threshold. The schism in America was now impossible to ignore, etched into the streets and the hearts of millions. As dusk fell, Washington transformed into a fortress. Barricades rose, sirens wailed, and helicopters circled overhead. The city's core was tense. Anger, jubilation, and uncertainty mixed in the air. Security reached unprecedented levels. Lockdowns, snipers, armored vehicles at intersections. A leaked memo warned of credible threats. Federal agents nationwide were on alert. Protesters from both sides clashed verbally across police lines. The media swarmed, turning blocks into makeshift studios. Inside government buildings, emergency meetings ran late into the night. Staffers scrambled to respond to a crisis with no playbook. National security, legal protocol, and public order were all in question. The city braced for a long, uncertain night. Washington had weathered many storms, but never one quite like this. The Capitol was on edge, its future uncertain. Legal scholars called it a turning point in American history. Never before had a former president faced federal arrest. The Special Counsel's move signaled the seriousness of the charges: national security, obstruction of justice. No one is above the law, a Georgetown professor declared. The legal system now faced unprecedented questions: Secret Service protocols, fair trial logistics, and the limits of presidential immunity. Experts predicted the case would reach the Supreme Court, testing the very structure of democracy. Supporters saw a reaffirmation of accountability. Critics saw political weaponization. The precedent set today would echo for generations. America stood at a constitutional crossroads. The future of the presidency and the rule of law hung in the balance. In the Capitol, the arrest triggered chaos. Emergency caucuses replaced routine debates. Party leaders scrambled for strategy. Democrats projected solemnity, urging trust in institutions. "This is a somber day," the Senate Majority Leader said. Republicans fractured. Loyalists called for impeachment of the Attorney General. Moderates urged caution, and some hoped to move beyond Trump. The White House kept its distance, emphasizing DOJ independence. The president convened an emergency security meeting, canceling public events. Behind the scenes, aides managed fallout and fielded calls from anxious foreign leaders. Rumors and uncertainty swirled through the halls. Would this spark a constitutional crisis? Violence? Election upheaval? Washington's usual predictability was gone. Every decision now carried historic weight. The city's power brokers knew the choices made tonight would shape the nation's future. Across America, the news landed with wildly different impact. In living rooms and workplaces, people paused, trying to process what they were hearing. Some stared at their screens in disbelief, while others reached for their phones, searching for answers or reassurance. In cities, small crowds gathered, hopeful that the system was working. There was a sense of anticipation, a cautious optimism that maybe the country could weather this storm. In rural towns, anger and betrayal dominated talk radio and podcasts. Voices crackled over the airwaves, expressing frustration and fear that their values were being ignored. For many, confusion and anxiety reigned. Parents whispered late at night, wondering what the future would hold for their children. Cable news and social media offered clashing realities. Some saw justice, others a coup. The divide was stark, with each side convinced they alone understood the truth. The country was united, only in its unease. Across every state, a single question lingered. What happens now? The federal response was immediate and sweeping. The FBI activated its command center. Field offices nationwide went on high alert. Agents monitored threats, aiming to prevent violence and ensure government continuity. Homeland Security issued warnings to local law enforcement, urging vigilance. The U.S. Marshals and Secret Service coordinated Trump's custody, an unprecedented logistical challenge. A secure location was designated for his processing, balancing protection and detention. The FAA imposed flight restrictions. Cybersecurity teams guarded against digital attacks. Every federal branch mobilized to manage the crisis. The protocols were designed for the worst-case scenario. The government was taking no chances. Trump's arrest became a global media spectacle. U.S. news fractured along partisan lines. Some called it justice, others political persecution. Conservative networks focused on protests and government overreach. Liberal outlets emphasized accountability and the rule of law. Online, echo chambers amplified both outrage and celebration. Memes, conspiracy theories, and viral videos flooded social media. International media watched with fascination and alarm. The BBC offered sober analysis. Al Jazeera questioned U.S. stability. Russian and Chinese outlets used the story to criticize American democracy. The world was transfixed, each nation interpreting the event through its own lens. For the first time, one American's legal troubles became a global story. The narrative battle was as fierce as the legal one. Night fell on a nation holding its breath. The shock had faded, but anxiety lingered. The arrest was not an end, but the start of a new, uncertain chapter. America stood at a precipice, its divisions laid bare. The questions now were existential. Can the country survive this trial? Will the outcome be accepted? The coming days would test the justice system, political leaders, and the public's faith. Every step, arraignment, trial, verdict, would be watched worldwide. The risk of unrest remained high, authorities prepared for anything. The nation's stability felt fragile, its future unwritten. Trump's arrest was a mirror, reflecting two visions of America. The world was watching, waiting for the next page. The story was just beginning.